I'm going to start with just the Seahawks season so far. It sure feels like they're making a case for one of the best teams in football, certainly in the NFC. Who do you kind of have atop the power rankings right now in your mind?
Well, luckily, I'm on a Seattle show, so I can say this, but the Seahawks are one of the teams I have at the top. Really, the NFC is way better as a conference than the AFC right now. I would say the Rams, the Seahawks, the Packers are probably the three teams I feel the best about in the entire NFL, and they're all in the NFC. So lucky for you guys, that's who you have to play against once the playoffs start get going. It's funny that you mentioned the kind of like teams that make the Super Bowl or teams that maybe make a run. Is that I think the Seahawks have a lot of the components that I look for. Not just, I think their defense is obviously a Super Bowl type winning defense because of what they can do against the run, pass rush, scheme, because Mike McDonald's one of the best play callers in the NFL, offense or defense. But just offensively, they have the explosive passing game that I look at, that I consider a component that you need to be a real contender. They're above the number that I look at is 14%. They're at 17.5%, which is second in the NFL. Very, very good. But I think that the run game kind of coming into its own has made them even more valid than I thought maybe a month ago. I kind of was considering that the Seahawks, I've always been very optimistic about the Seahawks this year. I had them winning the division, actually, going into this year. But I do think that the run game being more sustainable is going to really open up things once it comes playoff time, because you do need that. You can't be one-dimensional. So I do consider the Seahawks one of the best teams in the NFL. I think the underlying numbers indicate it, and also just the eye test indicated. And on top of it, they have a great special teams. It's a very complete team, and I think it's becoming even more complete, even if some of the results have been maybe a little bit up and down the last couple of weeks.
When you look at this Seahawks team, Nate, and every sabermetric says that they're a top team in the NFL, is there maybe a number or two that you look at and say, well, now hold on a minute, there is reason for concern if they don't get to a Super Bowl? What might stand out to you if the Seahawks do fall short of a Super Bowl?
You always worry. I mean, just eye test thing is the highs and lows of Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's a guy that I maybe like more than most national media. I've always been kind of bullish on him. What he can kind of give us, he can take us away, especially when he starts spiraling. The protection. I think any offense that's a Shanahan-Kubiak offense, like the Seattle employs, and it's as traditional Shanahan-Kubiak as you can get with Clint Kubiak being offensive coordinator, is if you don't get into a great game script or a neutral game script or a game script where you are having to come from behind, is do they have the straight drop back passing attack, meaning no screens, no play action, no under center. You just have to get in the gun and chuck it. Can they kind of sustain if they have to do that? That is really a question of the offensive line, because I think they have a glaring weakness at right guard. But also just, the auxiliary pass catchers outside of JSN. I think the Rashid Shaheed addition was fine, but they need Torrey Horton back. So it's just kind of create another element with this passing game. I think also, I like the auxiliary guys. I like A.J. Barner a lot. I think Cooper Kupp's got a nice role in this offense when he's out there and healthy. So those are the things that maybe I look at if they can drop back over and over and over and have to come back in a game. That's the biggest weakness. I brought up the run game because the number I look at, success rate is the number and success rate is basically half the yards that you gain if it's 1st and 10, if you get 5 or more yards. If it's second down, say it's 2nd and 8, if you get half or more yards, or if you get 100% of yards at 3rd and 4th down. That's a successful play. The number I look at in rushing success rate is 40% or more. And right now, the Seahawks are at 40.3%. So to me, that was one of their biggest kind of bugaboos, one of the biggest red alerts, maybe alarm bells I was looking at. And right now that's turning into more of from a red flag to like a neutral flag, which I think is good. So you talk about kind of sabermetrics, underlying numbers. That's one that has been improving. Even I think some of the pass protection stuff that might be the most glaring weakness for them.
What are the things about Sam Darnold that have kept you kind of bullish on him?
Just him booting to all right, so this is kind of a niche thing. But if you ever know, Sam Darnold's a lot better athlete than I think people give him credit for. If you really just see him operating on movement throws, this offense uses a lot of play action, uses a lot of bootlegs. And Sam Darnold can throw moving to his left. And that opens up creation. That opens up a whole more play menu. And so it's not just throwing to his left and moving to his left. That's just one component. but just he's an aggressive thrower. He's willing to push the ball. He'll make a mistake, and he kind of comes back, and he's still willing to do it, for better or for worse. I think the Rams game, of course, was maybe the worst example of it, but underlying numbers and even just rewatching that game, he was able to have him make a mistake and come back and keep firing. So that's why I always stay optimistic with him, is that he's a big game hunter that can lead to he's a home run hitter. And sometimes that can lead to strikeouts, and sometimes you go 0 for 5, but sometimes you jack up 3 home runs and everybody loves you. So I think that's why I like Sam Darnold so much, that he's willing to push the ball, willing to be aggressive, even if the surrounding situation is kind of falling apart or if he just had a previous bad play. I think the Texans game might be a good example of him bouncing back after maybe one of his bad moments. When when he's backed up and he took the safety, he was able to fire back right after that. That's why I've always stayed bullish on him.
Nate, looking at the best defensive lines in the NFL, the Seahawks, you can make the case, are up there. A big contributor to that has been DeMarcus Lawrence, him coming over in free agency from Dallas. A lot of people didn't know if he had this much left in the tank. When you look at what the Seahawks do on defense, how important has DeMarcus Lawrence been to sort of the overall operation and getting pressure on the quarterback and just wreaking havoc the way he has?
Yeah, and this is even when he was in Dallas. It's not even just getting after the quarterback. He's so good against the run, too. And that is significant, that you have a defensive end that is a two-way player. There's no real outright weakness with Lawrence. That I think that's where you really feel him. Of course, the big plays that he had last week. But, man, it's just also that how he plays the run. He does what a term is set the edge. Which makes it hard for offenses to run to the outside just because he's burying a tight end. And if you have a guy that an opposing offense goes, well, we can't block him with the tight end. I just talked about the menu, and Sam Darnold will be able to throw to the left, opens up the menu. Well, now we can't block this guy with the tight end. Okay, so now we're taking things away from the menu for the opposing offense. And that's what DeMarcus Lawrence does. And I consider this the most complete defensive line in the NFL. It'd probably be them and the Texans would be the top 2 to me. I think the Texans might have a little bit more pass rush juice with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. But I think the completeness of this whole defensive line, because they have every type of flavor. Leonard Williams, they have Byron Murphy in the middle. I know I'm on a Seattle show, so you guys know all these guys. But Derek Hall, all these guys, Nwosu, Mape, all these guys, but they're all different flavors. And I think that defensive line is kind of indicative. It's kind of a nice little microcosm of what Mike McDonald is as a play caller. I call his scheme kaleidoscopic. It's a kaleidoscope scheme. It's like 1 week it's this, 1 week it's that, 1 week it's this play it's this. That's why he's so good. But I think the defensive line having all these different flavors is kind of like a nice little, small component of what the Seahawks defense is that they can attack anybody in so many different ways with so many different flavors.
I think what's so interesting about this year's NFL is you can kind of make a case for and against a number of teams for getting to a Super Bowl. Even the teams that have felt inevitable, like the Chiefs, you look at them and go, are they going to make the playoffs? I mean, it has been since 2016 since we've even thought that, because they've won the AFC West every year since then. And I wonder, Nate, what you think about maybe the hesitation people have about the Seahawks. I know Curtis touched on it with one of his questions for you, that for a lot of people, that's probably Sam Darnold. Is there something else you think are making people hit pause? Because when I look at the rest of the NFL, I go, God, I don't see the Seahawks as having any more fatal flaws than even some of the league's best teams right now.
I think it's just human element. People need to see it. It's the lasting image of Sam Darnold. If you're just talking about like a layman fan, that national fan is, oh, didn't he have mono with the Jets?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Didn't he get
he sure did
9 times and have all these picks against the Rams in the playoffs? And that's what hangs in their head. So it's kind of, for me, who tries to predict things and analyze things and everything. That's why I picked the Seahawks to win this division, even though I thought it was going to be a competitive division. I thought their defense was going to be great, which it has been. And I've also just been, Sam Darnold is much better than he gets credit for. In the sense that I think the lows of Sam Darnold lives in people's heads, where I think he has more down-to-down sustainability. And so there's just that lag effect that comes with the national media and national fan base, I would say. I think it's happening with the Packers right now, too. I think the Packers are a legit contender, and people still have questions about Jordan Love, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And I just think it's because they haven't seen it. That team hasn't made a run before. While you look at the Bills, who I think are incomplete on defense, people go, they have Josh Allen, who won MVP. So it's just how people want to argue it. The Rams, who are very, very good. I think the Rams and Seahawks are two of the best teams. I think with the Rams, it's like, well, Matthew Stafford has won it. So, it's just an easier argument to make in the people's heads. So I do think that the Seahawks, again, I know I'm on a Seattle show, I do think that they don't get as much credit as they should, because I think this is a dominant, complete team, and I'm becoming more complete with the run game. And I think that's just a little bit of part of it. It's just the Darnold effect and just not having seen it. Who are JSN, like even JSN, who I think should be a lock to be Offensive Player of the Year. Others are trying to find ways to like get other guys mentioned into that discussion, which I don't agree with at all. I think Jason has locked it up. But no, I just do think there is a national lag behind what's actually going on in Seattle right now.
Nate, one team that the national media is starting to fall in love with is the Bears, who are sitting atop the NFC, which I don't think anybody had on December 2nd heading into the season. What do you make of them, and do you think they have the ability to stay on top of the NFC as things wind down here in the regular season?
So Bears were – this is kind of like what I was very optimistic about Ben Johnson, and I've been more bullish on Caleb than I think other people have kind of fallen off with him. I still thought May and Caleb were just the easy prizes of that draft, but their run game has been really the story of their season. You saw it on Black Friday against the Eagles. I don't think you even need stats to kind of go, wow, that was really good. But it's a top 3 run game. They're explosive as all get out. Again, I talked about that formula of being above 40%, and in rushing, they have that 45%. And also just passing the ball, they're above I look at 14%. They're above 14% explosive pass rate. So offensively, they're right on track to be a true contending offense. And it's not perfect. Like, they still make mistakes. They still have too many pre-snap penalties. But the run game is legit. The offensive line is much improved. And I think Caleb Williams is playing really, I would say, top 12 quarterback right now. How he's playing, even if, I know the completion percentage numbers aren't great, but that's because it's the offense. They're asking him to push the ball. When they take away, they don't run as many screens as Ben Johnson did in Detroit. So they're asking him to push the ball. They're trying to gain explosives, which are passes of 16 yards or more. That's the whole philosophy of the offense. On non-screen plays, his air yards is almost 10 yards, which is one of the highest in the NFL. That's a feature, not a bug of the offense. The big questions with them, though, are the defense. And it's been outright bad at times this year, a bottom 3 unit. But now they're getting healthier, and they got Kyler Gordon back, who's their slot defender. He's a very good one. And since he's been back, they have one of the better passing defenses in the NFL. They actually rank 4th in success rate when he's been on the field. They're 30th in success rate when he's off the field. So big, important player for them. So this is a long-winded way to say that if you asked me a month ago, I said, yeah, they can make the playoffs, but who knows? Now that defense is getting from bad to average-ish, I'm more of a believer in them. I think they can win a playoff game. I don't think they should be the 1 seed. I think the Packers are more complete than them. The Rams are more complete than them. And I would even venture to say the Seahawks are more complete than them. But I think the Bears offense is legit. It's the most explosive offense in the NFL, running and passing. And I think the sustainability is getting there. And now the defense is kind of rounding into form. I'm not going to say it's good, but it's not an outright travesty. So I think they're much more live in the playoffs rather being make it and then lose the first weekend. I think they can win a game, especially with some of these matchups in the NFC.
I wish we could ask you about each of the next 5 opponents for Seattle, but that would be a waste of your time. So I am going to ask you about one of them that I think we've been talking about a lot this year, but maybe have the least information on. Like, we kind of know what to expect with the Rams and the 49ers and even the Falcons in a way. The Colts, I have the hardest time pinning down, and I do as well with the Panthers, but I'm going to focus on the Colts, which is their next opponent on December 14th. My co-host, who isn't here today, predicted that they would start kind of regressing a little bit, and so far we've seen that. But what can you tell us about Indianapolis and maybe the direction they might be moving in?
Yeah, they had such a high standard to start the season, like literally one of the best offenses we've seen in our lifetime. So even if they regress just
hard
slightly,
to hit that consistently.
It's hard to sustain, especially, I might have been even a little harsh maybe on Daniel Jones the last couple of weeks ago. I'm like, oh, he's turning into a pumpkin. And upon rewatch, it's not as bad as maybe on initial watch. I do think that they still have it's a very sound offense. It's a very good offense. They have a lot of good. on the offense. Like there's not like a clear weakness. Like with the Seahawks, I can point out the right guard and go like, okay, that's a big weakness. Yeah. With the Colts, it's just like, oh yeah, everybody's like a B- or above at the very least. You have a breakout player right now in Alec Pierce, who's a receiver. He'll be a free agent after this year. I think he'll get paid big time, big deep play threat. Really has developed his game. Jones has been a good operator. He's banged up right now, but he's doing a lot of nice things. Even if he'll have a couple moments, like he'll have some moments where the defense could take advantage and create a turnover, which has happened a couple more times the last few weeks. It's still a good offense, though. What happened last week in their loss was their run game. It's the first time their run game really hit a wall, which is something I'm keeping my eye on because it's been so overwhelmingly good. Jonathan Taylor is one of those guys that's battling JSN for Offensive Player of the Year. It's still a good run game. It's still a good offense. Is it the best we've seen in 20 years? I don't know. Probably not, but still a top 10 offense. I will say that can run and throw the ball with a lot of live options. Tyler Warren, a solid offensive line. Michael Pittman's a pretty good player. Josh Downs in the slot's a good player. That might be the guy that they target against the Seahawks. And then defensively, I don't think the defense is very good. I think it's average. DeForest Buckner's been hurt, their defensive lineman. They traded for Sauce Gardner a lot. They traded a lot for Sauce Gardner, which I'm a little iffy on. And Gardner got hurt in this last game with a calf strain. Yeah. So that's something. I think he's out for 2 weeks. And so the Seahawks might get to avoid him. And that's been the big weakness for this team is their corner play. Travarius Ward is still solid, but now they go, it's just an empty black hole on the other side opposite of Ward. So that is something that can be pickable, like where I think the defense is fine, but it's not very venomous. It's not something that truly scares you. It's more of a game plan defense. Like they can get you on some third downs, but down to down, if you take care of business, you can get after them. So I do think that they dropped off slightly from their highs of the beginning of the year. But when you have an elite offense, the average defense doesn't matter as much. But when the offense is just more good, then the average defense does matter more, if that makes sense, because that has dropped off a little bit. So I'm not saying the bottom's falling out for them, but they have dipped slightly as opposed to what they started in the season.
Make sure you are listening regularly to Football 301 with Nate Tice. He is Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you. Go Mariners.